This is the Truth Network.
Coming to you from an entrenched barricade deep in the heart of central North Carolina. Masculine Journey After Hours. A time to go deeper and be more transparent on the topic covered on this week's broadcast. So sit back and join us on this adventure. The Masculine Journey After Hours starts here now.
Welcome to Masculine Journey After Hours, and we are talking about the topic of out of control. You know, what to do when life feels out of control. And I think that a lot of people are feeling that definitely during this COVID situation that we've been going through, that I think that control's been dictated to us by the way a lot of people feel. You know, when they released some stuff in North Carolina last Friday at 5, I think it was, you could not drive anywhere Saturday. It was like all of a sudden people thought that meant it was like wide open again. You couldn't go to the grocery. You know, every place was full. You know, it was just amazing, you know, and I didn't go anywhere. I saw the cars like, I'll buy whatever I need to next week. You know, I can last a couple more days. I still have toilet paper. But, yeah, you know, when you don't have control, you do things like you buy toilet paper. That's obviously going to give you control over something, you know. And it seems rather important at that point, yeah.
That's what I've heard. I couldn't figure that out. I mean, why are people not going for hand sanitizer and soap? No, they're going for toilet paper. And I heard that people don't want to get in a situation to where they're without something.
Yeah,
you know, just
that they
comfort.
Need.
Yeah,
we missed the opportunity for the perfect bump out music. You know, wipe out.
So I asked God, why the toilet paper? Why the toilet paper? God's sense of humor, he says, because the crap has hit the fan.
Yeah, it's crazy. I had to go to the store today to get some stuff. I was out of milk and some things, some staples. You know, I finally had to buck up and go, and still no toilet paper. It's like, how can we be this far into it and people are still buying? You know, that hoarding mentality.
The roll was called up yonder.
Welcome to Robbie's Puns.
Yes.
Today.
This is Robbie's potty humor. It's the next big movement.
Robbie's potty.
It's number 2 currently.
Yes, it's number 2 on the charts. Yes, it is. So we're out of control, right? I mean, we're all a little bit punchy. This is the first time that we've all been able to be in the studio together since the beginning of COVID-19. And so we're, you know, I promise we're not drinking.
Yeah, we are missing a couple of the people, and I wish they could have been here, but it's nice to have you guys not just on the phone.
Right, exactly. And it is fun to be together. And so we're cutting up a little bit and having some fun together. And excited about that. But this whole idea of I'm not in control of very much right now, even if you are, I mean, my life hasn't really been any different than it ever has been through this whole thing, other than the fact that I've not been able to use Charmin Ultra Soft.
Yeah.
I've had to use Kirkland brand toilet paper, which I'm not excited about. Let me just tell you, Costco needs to do better. However, you know, my life really hasn't changed much. And I got to thinking about that the other day, and I thought, you know, I'm lucky because most people's lives really have changed an awful lot. And, you know, but I still feel that angst, you know, that angst of everybody's trying to tell everybody else what to do. On Facebook, it's horrible how people are treating each other on Facebook. And it's, you know, they don't have any control over anything. So what they're going to do is try to control somebody on Facebook. You should wear a mask. You shouldn't wear a mask. It's, you know, I mean, all the different stuff that's out there. It's crazy the way people are treating each other. And they're just judging each other right and left. And it's so funny that this is where we're at. And most of them are Christians. I mean, most of my friends that I'm, you know, on Facebook with are Christians. And I'm like, hey, Matthew 7, you know, but we are very much out of control. Everybody's getting punchy and we're trying to take back something. But that's, you know, we left the regular show, you talking about that's your struggle. It's my struggle too. I'm willing to give God control. After I try 4 or 5 things, I'm ready to give him control. But as long as he's willing, it's okay, God, I'm going to give you control, but I need you to take this to that place for me. So he becomes my errand boy if I'm not careful. And I don't mean that in any disrespect at all. But that is how poorly I am treating him.
Yeah, and what's in your timeline and stuff too.
Well,
Right.
yeah, of course. I mean, it
Yeah.
needs to be
So,
done by this week.
I think it was funny 2 or 3 weeks ago. I think you said, "Man, I've really been encouraged by what I've seen on Facebook and how people are reaching out and being kind to one another."
Yeah, well,
And
that's
the very
over.
point- Exactly. That was how quick it changed because we didn't hit the timeline, right?
But I'm still trying to figure out what Matthew 7 is. I'm like, love others. No, that's John, I think. I
Judge
don't-
not, lest you be
Oh,
judged. For with what judgment you judge, you shall be judged.
Yeah, I could look it up on the
From the King
phone.
James.
There you go.
I got the ifs, so we're good.
Yeah, what we were talking that I think is like, oh my goodness. When I look back in my life at the time that I was the most out of control, there was places in my health that were out of control, but that was a little different. Yeah. But when I was losing the dealership and everything financial, my house, my reputation, all my friends were evaporating. Everything was, ricocheting off everywhere. And I remember all too vividly praying as I'm going up the hill into where the Moxville is, God, are you aware of all that's going on here? Because, there's people there talking about you because, everybody knew I was a Christian and they are thinking I stole the money. And how could, and this is hard on your reputation. And he was very clear to me, Robbie, you take care of your reputation. I'm perfectly capable. Mine's in good shape. But it brings back a point that I think is relevant, is that this is when I really got sensitive to start to listen. Okay, because clearly we are headed in some real rocky waters. And I see big boulders coming up. They're going to slap my family, going to slap my employees. They all lost their jobs. I saw these things that I guess are similar to what people are experiencing right now. And, I didn't perceive, honestly, to quote a clip we're going to play here in a second, that failure was an option. It just didn't, that thought never occurred to me. That clearly he was going to save my bacon. Clearly we were going to pull the ox out of the ditch. This can't go this way. But it was an option, and it was what he had, and it really did. I'm, whatever it is, 13, 14 years on the other side of that catastrophe. And oh my goodness, the freedom that my heart now has. And as I heard you talk about your story, Wayne, that you're going through something similar with your job right now, I had no concept of how my heart had been tied into the car business and the bondage that was to Chrysler and to Chrysler Financial and all these different people that really had me in places that I hate to even think about where I was at that point in my life. And there was no, talk about frustration like we talked about in the last show.
Yeah, one of the things you said there that I caught on really quick to was, it took that before you really started to listen. It took that before you really realized that I can hear his voice. He is talking to me, and he's talking to all of us. And he's been screaming, and that's part of this COVID thing. Is he's taken us to a point where now we're pulled away from the things that we thought mattered, and he's taken us to a place where we have to really get to listening.
Darren, do you want to go ahead and set up the clip?
Yeah, we'll set this clip up. It's kind of a continuation of these guys in Houston trying to figure out how to get these guys back. And you'll hear some heroes and some zeros in here, and then you'll hear Ed Harris's character, at the end say, "Look, failure's not an option." And so we're going to talk about that in a minute.
So you're telling me you can only give our guys 45 hours? That brings them to about there. Gentlemen, that's not acceptable. We gotta talk about power here. Whoa, guys! Power is everything.
Power is everything.
What do you mean?
Without it, they don't talk to us, they don't correct their trajectory, they don't turn the heat shield around. We gotta turn everything off. Now. They're not gonna make it to re-entry.
What do you mean, everything?
With everything on, the LEM draws 60 amps. At that rate, in 16 hours, the batteries are dead, not 45. And so's the crew. We got to get them down to 12 amps. 12 amps? How many? You can't run a vacuum cleaner on 12 amps, John. We got to turn off. We have to turn off the radars, cabin heater, instrument displays, the guidance computer, the whole smack.
Whoa, guidance computer. What if they need to do another burn? Gene, they won't even know which way they're pointed.
The more time we talk down here, the more juice they waste up there. I've been looking at the data for the past hour.
That's the deal?
That's the deal.
Okay, John. And then we finish the burn, we'll power down the LEM.
All right.
Now, in the meantime, we're gonna have a frozen command module up there. In a couple days, we're gonna have to power it up, use nothing but the re-entry batteries.
We've been tried before. Hell, we've never even simulated it before, Gene.
Well, we're gonna have to figure it out. I want people in our simulators, working re-entry scenarios. I want you guys to find every engineer who designed every switch, every circuit, every transistor, and every light bulb that's up there. Then I want you to talk to the guy in the assembly line who actually built the thing. Find out how to squeeze every amp out of both of these machines. I want this mark all the way back to Earth with time to spare. We never lost an American in space. We're sure it's not going to lose one on my watch. Failure is not an option.
Yeah, I never noticed him stammering so much.
Yeah. Ed's very unsure of himself.
Yeah, no, I think for me, as I listen to that clip over and over, from a leadership lesson, I've seen that actually in a couple different companies I've been with, and talking about the power of good leadership.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some truth in that, that you do have to take control, but you also have to give control. And I think for me, the key words in there was what he said, not on my watch.
Mm-hmm.
Because that makes me the failure,
mm-hmm.
right? If something happens and I'm the failure, right? And when you live with that fear, as you talked about in the last one, you're going to, not in the case of this movie, but in most cases, you're going to make some really bad decisions.
Most of my young life, I was a manager, a leader. I mean, from the time I was 19 years old, I was in supervisory positions and managing people's companies or my own company, and failure always felt like it wasn't an option, right? And so I was that very intense guy that you just heard talking. And I had a good head on my shoulders enough to figure out ways to get out of things. But one thing I learned fairly early on was that the people around me are probably smarter than I am. At any particular thing, maybe not on everything, but there's at least one guy in the room that's smarter than me on, voltage meters. And so find that guy and figure out what we got to do. And that's the way we are, is we want to talk to, we want to find out, we want to research, we want to do all those things. And we're usually doing that long before we go, okay, God, you know exactly how a voltmeter works. You know exactly how those batteries work. You know exactly how that space, ship is going to get back home. And so, God, what do you got for us? And then waiting on him. And sometimes, and we talked about this before the show, Robbie brought it up, and it was a point of contention among all of us. Is that really true? Is failure not an option? Well, faith can say, yeah, failure is an option, but I'm okay with that if God wants me to fail here in order to give me something better. And quite often he does. And we're going to have Morgan Snyder on next week with us, and he just wrote a new book called Becoming a King. And one of the quotes in that book is that a man of 30 has so many things in his heart and mind. There's so much taken up room in there that there's no way that God can give him new stuff until he excavates and tears down some old stuff. And we're always there. And so God is always in the business of, failure's an option. Surely it's an option. Now, I appreciate Ed Harris and the person that, that he was playing there, caring about these three guys' lives and the whole program and trying to get it back. I'm not faulting him at all. I'm not saying that he was faithless or anything like that. But there is very much a different perspective there. A person of faith, of deep faith, can say, you know what, God, failure might be an option. And if that's what you have for me, then okay, I don't like it. That was Jesus in Gethsemane. God, is there another way to do this? Father, is there another way? I don't like this way. Is failure an option? But if death is the only option, let your will be done, not mine, which tells you what Jesus' will was. It wasn't dying. It was living and saving humanity. And yet he is willing to have that death moment, and sometimes we have to die to something in our own life.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, I've heard all your stories, and I think all of us can say that really failure was a necessity for all of us to actually be here around this table, because we had to come to a point at the end of ourselves. That's what I did for so long, is just try to control things. And it was such a frustration, because I thought that was the right thing to do. And most Christian circles, it was always a self-help or take yourself up by the bootstraps. And yeah, you got to, sprinkle in a little God and a little Holy Spirit, but you'll get there. But even then, it was a total submission, and you were still doing things on your own. And it's so much more freeing when you know that you don't have to, that you can truly let Jesus take the wheel, and he's going to drive you home. So.
I think about that Apollo 13 story. Really, the three guys in the command module had to live by the faith, because they had absolutely no control. They could only do what they were told, and they had to be obedient, right, and execute it, because they had to have 100% faith in the people that were back home, trying to get them home. And I think my problem tends to lie in two things: what I define as failure, because what I define as failure obviously may not be what God defines as failure, right? What mankind defines as failure. In many of the people's eyes, for 3 days, Jesus had failed. And for generations after that, the ones that didn't believe, right, that Jesus had failed. And so you can get trapped in that. I still wake up every night in the middle of the night before I have a closing the next day, because we're supposed to not have any open items at closing. We're supposed to have the house 100% done. And so I wake up every time running through my head, is there anything left? Is there anything left? Because I'm not going to fail on my watch. And at the end of the day, if I had it wouldn't really be that big a deal, right? But I lose sleep every time, until I can talk myself out of it's really not that big a deal. It's not truly failure, but that falls into what I deal with a lot, is saying, okay, God, I'm going to give it to you, but yeah, it's really yours. I'm not just giving you the lip sync of this is yours. B, I'm going to do what you asked me to do, and I'm going to trust that you know what failure and success is way more than I do.
There's this app that's at Ransom Heart. It's called the Pause app. And, to be completely transparent, I don't use it anymore because I ended up with so much screen time, I'm like, this is in itself. Now I'm using this as a crutch in order to listen to God. And I want to listen to you without the app anymore. But the app did teach me, and I think it's good for this, the surrender and actually asking God at different times during your day, is there something I need to let go of? And it was really a wonderful training. At 10 and 3 and all those things, the alarm would go off, and there you go. It's time to think, okay, God, what do I need to let go of? And one of the wonderful ways that God can train a 64-year-old man is my nap time, okay? I go home most days, and I take a nap.
Just say it louder.
It's my nap time, okay? So,
do you get a bottle with that?
Yeah. Well, the point is if you're going to lay your head down, I eat lunch, and then
Harold doesn't have to take naps.
I know. He's beyond me. But seriously, in order to sleep at that time of the day, you have got to let go. And I lay my head on the pillow. I'm like, okay, God, I am completely trusting you with the rest of my day, because clearly I need sleep. And, I just do. And I am so much more productive in the afternoon as a result of my nap. I can show you, a lot of what I do is creative work, and I can't be creative if I'm not rested. And I can't be rested if I'm holding on to stuff. And so, to me, there's definitely ways that we can go about, beginning that to integrated into our lives on 2 or 3 times a day to let go of stuff.
In order to be transparent, I've got the Pause app, Anybody guess how many times I've actually paused when it's said to?
Is that like a dog adoption?
Yeah, PAWS.
Yeah,
no,
is
it's
that...
PAUSE.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it'll go off, and I'll go. Yeah, I don't have time for that. I got stuff I got to control.
I think I downloaded it and didn't even really realize what it was at first. And the first couple of times I was like, "What is that?"
Yeah, I would do a lot better to be like you, Robbie, and just take advantage of that time.
I need to be a little bit more like that. It probably would be very helpful to me. I am only creative and really tuned in to God early in the mornings. I try to get up at 4:35, 5:36, 8:30 sometimes. I try to get up early and spend time with God, and I've, as of late, been writing more and more, and I used to do that, and I used to really enjoy it. And it was a burden for me for a long time, and it's not anymore. It's a joy, and I'm doing it. But what I do find out is that when I miss those morning times, the rest of my day, I'm even less in tune with God. But when I do take that time in the morning, that at 3 o'clock or at 2 o'clock, or when a guy comes up on a job site and go, I'm building my own house right now, and I'm building a barn for men to meet in and have a good time in and stuff in the kingdom. And in the process of that, I've got a lot of guys working on my construction site, and they're mostly young. And they're constantly coming to me and saying, all right, you've been in this business a while, or you've been around life for a while. Help me figure this out. And it's not about construction. It's about life. And it's a blessing to have energized my soul to drink from the well in the morning, so that I've got some water to share, later on in the afternoon. And it's not necessarily what I studied that morning or prayed about that morning. It's just that my well is no longer empty. It's ready, and I can minister out of hopefully the overflow often, rather than, oh no, God, I'm dry down here. I got to say something because I'd be a poser, if, oh wait, no, I am a poser because I have to say something. But no, it makes so much more in my life. But that whole issue of, I don't know what I can control right now, but I'm going to control the way I'm seen. I'm going to control the way I come off to other people. I want to control my image. Robbie was talking about that earlier. I don't have it all together. I'm all messed up, but at least I can control the facade. I can control the poser right now and make everybody think I've got it together, even if I don't. And that's probably the biggest battle that I fight right now, because there's lots of days where I'd like to go, I got nothing for you. I'm as broken as you are in that, particular moment.
The beautiful thing from my perspective is just came to my mind. We go back to Peter, right? I mean, his whole world was out of control. But what that was the stripping of Peter's mask, right? I'm going to be there for you, Jesus. I'm your guy, da-da-da-da-da-da, right? And what turned out to be, obviously appeared to be failure to Peter, when he's asking, he's standing there denying him 3 times, because at this point in time, clearly in his heart, the whole thing's coming on apart. And so here I am. But what happened as a result of that was we got down to the real Peter. And Jesus on the morning, that we had breakfast, and asking Peter, do you love me? Let's get down to the heart of this deal. Let's get down to what's real. And let's get past the shame, and let's get down to, do you love me?
Yeah, that was what I was talking about, though. Failure was a necessity there.
Yeah, exactly.
It had to be, and it's sad that it has to be, but that's what all of us humans go through. We have to come to that point at some point in time to give up control.
And to give up and the mask stripping is part of that process as well.
And I appreciate you talking about that earlier, how all of us have had to go through that. Anyone who's listening who thinks that, there are born leaders, there are no born leaders. We all have to learn. The guy who mentioned, 45 minutes or else they die, he had to listen and accept that I was wrong, but he learned something in that moment. It talks about how tribulation brings about perseverance, and perseverance, character. And we require this to grow. None of us are born David, right?
We have to be shaken, not stirred.
Right.
It's a James Bond thing.
There you go.
Yeah, that's probably a show in itself.
Yeah, Robbie's heroes just got out of, I don't know, he's thinking of the wrong hero here, but.
What makes it difficult, though? I mean, yes, logically, scripturally, I believe that all to be true, but when I'm in the midst of it,
nobody wants that.
It's so hard.
Why can't you be more like me, Sam?
That's my goal. Yeah. Back in the 80s, more like Mike.
Yeah, exactly.
Be like Mike, and then now be like Darren.
No, that's nobody's goal, hopefully. I'm right there with you. It is, what does really giving up control look like? What does that really mean in your life? And maybe you don't know. Maybe that's a place to start is okay, God, show me what it looks like to lose control. Now, I used to not pray for patience, right? Because God does things to you so that you have to have patience is what I thought. That's a lie. But what does it look like to really give God control?
Yeah, I think it's something you just start with the baby steps and say, God, I'm going to give this to you. And if I take it back, that doesn't mean I can't go right back to my knees and give it to you again and say, I'm going to keep doing that until I can walk in faith. Because at the end of the realm, maybe some of the times we fall into failure is all because we didn't give up control, right? And we could have avoided that failure. Maybe not. Maybe we're not going to avoid it. But the thing is to walk in trust with Him, knowing that He's got your heart better than even you have it. And He's going to take it to a place of life and freedom and restoration. We'll see you next week.